Hi, welcome to Kestryl and Company. I'm Kestryl, your host. My company today is someone who's been with me before, Eric Pollard. He's an herbalist. And we're going to be talking today about things, herbs in toning the body and getting oneself ready for pregnancy. We're going to be doing a series of these programs in conjunction with the birth of this particular child that I'm pregnant with right now. And welcome to my circle.
Thank you. Thank you, Kestryl. It's good to be here.
I'm so glad you came back. Let's talk a little bit about just general toning of the body, why it's important, and what herbs we can use, both men and women, to just get toned, you know, make our immune system stronger, and what that's all about.
I think that's very important. Pregnancy is vital. I'm going to use the word vital as opposed to drastic change in the human body, in the female's body that comes on. And it's something that ideally can be planned for and prepared for ahead of time in order that optimum results can manifest. There are a number of herbs that have historically been used in preparation for pregnancy and to maximize the state of the uterus for a healthy pregnancy throughout the trimesters coming to full term. In particular, red clover, nettles, and red raspberry, exceptionally, have been used as exceptional toners of the uterine lining and wall.
And those are all very tasty herbs. I
They're
can speak from personal
yes.
experience. They're all very tasty herbs.
Fortunately, they're all very, very valuable and taste nice. So it's not like you're going to have to do something you don't like.
Nervines and they're very bitter.
Red raspberry in particular, not only is it a nice thing to taste. I will tell many women who seek my advice concerning the pregnancy to get to know red raspberry, not just to take it, but get to know red raspberry for the length of their pregnancy and 6 months after as well. I think that it's one of the plants that is truly on this earth for the beneficial aspects for the women and for bringing yet more fruits of our
Well, I think also one of the important things I know in myself, especially in early pregnancy and before you're getting ready to, is your immune system. You know, you have to have a very strong immune system, because if your immune system is weak, the rest of your body's going to be fairly weak. And so what are some of the things we can do to strengthen the immune system beforehand to make sure that that is also in optimum working condition?
Well, it's interesting that you would ask that, because in many ways the state of becoming pregnant is a way of teaching the body to accept this, what it initially recognizes as an invader, the sperm, into the womb. And there's a balance that has to be achieved there. I recognized all three of the ones that I mentioned, red clover, nettles, and red raspberry, as toning to the uterus in preparation. Before pregnancy and during the first trimester, it's also very safe to use Echinacea angustifolia and Echinacea purpurea, which essentially would be Echinacea species. This is a powerful immune-stimulating herb, as I spoke about on my last program, and that can be used to great success. I do not, and I do caution not to overuse this herb. I would probably recommend it to be used pretty much with abandon at a time when you were under the weather, but as a general tonic only once, perhaps every 3 days. Another one, by the way, is pansy. Wild pansy can be very effective just in cleansing the lymph and some of the other interstitial body fluids.
For those who aren't real well educated in what their body does, you mentioned the lymph, and that's one thing that comes into play quite a bit. What does the lymph do? Everybody says, "Oh, well, I have lymph nodes in here somewhere," and they don't know what they do.
Well, lymph nodes are actually nothing more than where the lymph and the T cells and the B cells can congregate in the process of fighting off an infection. The lymphatic system is sort of like a secondary blood system. It's not a blood system or circulatory system like blood that transports oxygen through the body, but it's responsible for removing toxins from the body and also carrying other types of cells that are not carried in the blood. It pervades all throughout your body. When you, in fact, say had a cut and pus forms or clear liquid is produced from it, that's lymphatic fluid that is being emitted, and it is a normal process. Herbalism is often very confusing because it'll talk about blood cleansers. Well, if the blood were truly in a process of being dirty or needing cleansing, there would be a serious major medical emergency afoot. And so it's often a frustrating term because it sounds like something it isn't. What they're referring to is a means of cleansing the lymph, cleansing, removing toxins from the body, and then letting the immune system support itself because you've removed the poisons. This is very important in any pregnancy because your fertility will always be a direct conjunction of where your immune system is at.
Well, that's one of the things we should probably touch on, is that in today's society there are a lot of women who are having trouble getting pregnant. This has never been a problem for me per se. This is my fifth child, but you know, I do have a couple of very dear friends who have problems with infertility. Is there anything that can be taken in an herbal form to help promote fertility for women?
Fertility will be promoted by the use of, once again, the red raspberry. You see, I really like this herb because it's 100% safe in practically all cases. That is for both men and women. In particular for females, something that can be very effectively used, particularly before pregnancy and right at the beginning, is a Chinese herb called dong quai or dong qi. That's also sometimes known as female ginseng. It's very regulatory to the entire estrogen cycle. If you wish to increase the production of estrogen, in particular, licorice root is very powerful for that. And it will also have an influence on progesterone. Okay?
Licorice root is hard on people that don't like black licorice, though, because that's where black licorice comes from.
Well, it's a very unique taste, and I might even use the term vibration, but it is very specific for this situation. With men, you might try ginseng, Panax ginseng, or even the American Panax singfolium, as well as sarsaparilla root has been proven even scientifically to increase the production of testosterone as well as sperm counts.
I think that, again, the immune system is going to be very important, because a woman that has a weak immune system probably won't have a very regular menses.
Right. And something that's important to realize, too, with the immune system is this whole idea is a non-existent entity. There is no organ in the body that you could say is the immune system or that directly necessarily regulates it, though we do see organs that have a role in it. We're talking about something that doesn't exist except in terms of our own entablature. What I think is happening with many women who find that their fertility is low is that their body is so stressed with dealing with the toxins that they're taking in their food, they're taking and breathing in their air in the cities. And in many cases, the drugs that their own allopathic doctors will put them on that weigh heavily upon the immune system and its ability to cleanse and get rid of elimination, waste
I also,
products.
being from a very spiritual path myself, I also think that a woman's frame of mind has an awful lot to do with where she's at in her fertility. And if she has had trouble with fertility, it tends to play with her own sense of self-worth, which again is stressful to the system. So I think from a spiritual standpoint, as far as treating infertility would go, in addition to going through the process of cleansing your body and toning your body and getting it ready for the baby, you also have to cleanse your mind of the ideas that just because you've had trouble with this process doesn't mean it can't happen.
That's very, very, very true. And this is one area that herbal medicine, or the practice of phytotherapy, differs in its very basic paradigm from the allopathic model. And I would like to see people move away from the idea that you take this pill or you take this drug, or even you take this plant X in order to do this, that this action is a direct result. Because in reality, it's a synergistic reality that works across the system. That's why I say get to know licorice root, get to know red raspberry, as opposed to simply thinking that taking a tea of it will produce its effect. Taking a tea of the herb, of the plant, or as the medicine spirit, as the American Indians might call it, in conjunction with the change in your own consciousness and your desire to work with this herb, with this substance, will almost infallibly produce the result that you seek.
I know that also, not necessarily infertile couples, but also one of the problems that a lot of women have because of stress and because of various, drugs that they've been put on since they were children is just irregular menses. And they have a whole lot of problem just regulating their cycle enough to be able to judge, when am I menstruating, when am I ovulating? And those are all important things. What are some of the things that can be done just to regulate the system?
Well, ideally, the system is self-regulatory. That is to say, your body will help, your body being an extension of your mind will work with the mind and just with the regular cycles to produce a state of balance. This is where herbs can help. As an herb such as dong qi, for instance, can be very effective just in the regulation. I've found fo tea, another Chinese herb, very effective for many women. They've reported to me on a number of occasions just exactly how balancing they feel it is. Mm-hmm. This, incidentally, is also very helpful during the menopausal cycle, another time when major shifts in the estrogen levels and progesterone levels are undergoing a radical shift in the whole cycle leading up through age and the process of growing and development. So ideally, you'll see that the body is self-regulatory. However, there's much you can do, for instance, to bring on a suppressed menstruation. These herbs are called emmenagogues, and they assist the body in bringing about menstruation. And there's several of them that you can work, anywhere from very mild emmenagogues, such as lemon balm, to some very strong ones that are available.
Well, one of the things that people are probably going to expect us to touch on, that I'm going to explain briefly why we're not touching on, is abortifacients, things that are used to and terminate pregnancy. And there are several reasons, one being that we don't want to necessarily get into the abortion issue on this particular topic, and also because herbal abortifacients, from what I understand, can be very dangerous. And as the disclaimer that we were presenting through the show, we aren't here to give medical advice. So we aren't going to be talking about those. So I wanted to stress the difference between an emmenagogue and an abortifacient. What's the difference there?
Well, an emmenagogue, and there are quite a number of emmenagogues, is an herb that will help to bring on menstruation. In many cases where fertility has occurred, or that's to say implantation of the egg in the lining of the uterus that is conceived, you could be 2 to 3, 4 weeks, sometimes even up to 8 weeks into a pregnancy and still have a menstrual cycle. And this can be helped to be brought on through the use of herbs. An abortifacient usually occurs later, is far, far more drastic, and should not be, I repeat, should not be attempted by someone who doesn't realize that plant and what they're doing with that plant and does not have a symbiotic association with it. It should also, for purposes of law, I need to state, ever be accomplished without the presence of a qualified medical practitioner of your own choosing. I can give you a very good example. I won't list the company, but I did have a run-in this week with a certain consumer advocate of a large retail supermarket firm, and I was at this supermarket, and I saw that they had free literature, a book on foods for a healthy pregnancy, and as I looked through the book, I saw that 4 of the recipes that they list in this large volume contained copious amounts of parsley. Well, that would not strike very many people as an odd thing. Like a chickpea salad with half a cup of parsley may be a lot of parsley, but we wouldn't think that'd be a problem in pregnancy, except that I personally would have to tell you that my medical knowledge that I have, as well as that which is listed with the Medicinal Plants Research Lab for the USDA, is irrevocable on the point that parsley is dangerous to use during pregnancy because it is, one, a powerful emmenagogue. It's a member of the hemlock family. And number 2, it's a strong uterine contractor. A woman that was sensitive or that could be particularly delicate in the 3rd trimester, it could easily bring on a miscarriage or induce labor before it was ready by taking excessive amounts of parsley. It puts a responsibility on us to know what we're doing and what we're putting in our bodies.
Well, just out of curiosity, I know that celery and parsley are related, I mean distantly, but they are related.
Distantly.
Would celery have some kind of an effect?
No, celery is pretty much safe. They're very far removed. Watercress should be watched with But once again, it will vary towards the amounts and also your own body constitution.
Well, that's, things like that are just things that should probably be avoided by women who are particularly susceptible to miscarriage during whatever trimester.
Yeah. Celery
They
seed,
have to be
however.
particularly very careful.
Any spices, any strong use of recognized safe spices should still be avoided during pregnancy. And anytime you're taking any herbs during pregnancy, even in the first trimester, one has to realize the old cliche that you're eating for two, and that you should know your own body's association with the plant before directly taking it in.
We've touched on infertility and the problems that some women have. Let's just talk about. You've mentioned your affinity for red raspberry.
Mm-hmm.
Is this just the leaf? Are we talking about the berry? Are we talking about the root, the whole plant?
Well, that's interesting. Now, in the literature on herbs, traditionally, you'll find red raspberry leaf to be what is used most frequently. There is a growing awareness in the literature that the whole plant will work in many different ways. With the coming of flower essences, we have a whole new aspect of herbalism that goes beyond the mere chemical paradigm. I'll give you another example, and that is of the thistle. The whole thistle family can have powerful effects on women in particular. The artichoke, by the way, is a member of the thistle family. Mm-hmm. Italian women in medieval Italy, without the permission, to be certain, of the Catholic Church, would use unopened buds of the artichokes as an emmenagogue, or to bring on menstruation even after fertility could have occurred. But it was only the unopened buds that were powerful in that way, almost symbolic of the womb that had not conceived or that was not meant to. Mm-hmm. Here you have the doctrine of the signatures.
That's the symbology that came across to me when you mentioned the thistle family being primarily strong for females, is that thistles are very prolific plants. All of them are very prolific plants.
Absolutely. Whether you're talking about milk thistle, Carduus marianum, and even if you look at the thistle family, they're all in the binomial nomenclature. Milk thistle is Carduus marianum, named after Mary, or mother is what it means. There's, of course, lady's thistle, woman's thistle, blessed thistles, Cynipridium, and on it goes. All drawing an association that Linnaeus originally placed. And I want you to know something else. I want everyone out there to know that the doctrine of the signature is not specific just to the way the plant manifests, but that much of what Paracelsus and Linnaeus left, he did it in code. He did it in code because the government would not allow him to make the claims, as I am not allowed to make many claims today, and also because the church, he feared direct clamping down. And so he put hidden meanings in the words that he named these plants for, that if you understand, his own little, if you can interpret or intuit what he may have been trying to tell you, you start to see codes towards the uses of the plants, including for pregnancy.
There's there's a book on herbs that's taken from a Native American standpoint. And it's a very tiny book, little bitty book. And through the whole thing, he only studies like 5 or 7 different plants. But they talk about looking at the shape of the plant, looking at the color of the plant, letting you know from the color and the shape of the plant what part of the body it's going to work on best. And very recently, we were talking in one of our other segments about dreams, and one of the dreams that I had was that one of my spirit guides was talking to me, and he said, you need to eat more dark green leafy vegetables, and you also need to eat lots of beets. And so I took a good look at beets, and I said, dark red, okay, blood, heart,
Yes.
and
Liver.
Yes, liver. And so it's really interesting if you really start to study herbs at all. One of the ones that he also stresses in this particular book is iris, and how much iris and different forms of orchid can work in the body, and it's very interesting.
Iris is a very good example, and it's also a good example of working with I use the term respect as opposed to caution, because iris versicolor, or also known as blue flag, is a powerful, to use the term.
Common.
Common, yes. Lymph cleanser. It can also be used to, once again, as an emmenagogue. But iris versicolor taken in the second or third trimester could serve to be abortifacient. It can be, taken too much of it, a powerful emetic, producing immense vomiting, profuse vomiting. So once again, get to know the herb.
But it's also very interesting. We were talking earlier about nervines, and specific nervines coming from the orchid family. The very interesting thing is that if you look at any flower from the orchid family, all of the flowers have veins in them that are very, very profuse, and it looks like a nervous system or a blood system.
It is a nervous system.
And it's very interesting to look at the plants and see, how they can affect you just by looking at the plant.
Well,
because a lot of people don't notice. They plant all these flowers and they don't know that they can be using them.
In the flower essences, in fact, it would be perfectly safe to use the irises. And I believe in the literature there's quite a lot of this going on for use for pregnancy. Anything that one can do with the plants. Herbalism is not just a matter of what we can eat or what we can drink from the plants. It is a connection to Gaia, to the goddess, through the heart of the earth. And the plants are her messengers, her teachers, and her healers. So in many orchids, particularly some of the ones that are endangered, I don't recommend picking them and making a tea of them, though they may have profound effects for doing so. Try just sitting down and talking to one sometime. You may find you learn more.
A lot of people are going to giggle at the idea of sitting down in their flower garden and talking to their plants, but it's very true.
My definition of an herbalist, as opposed to a gardener, is a gardener talks to his plants, but an herbalist, they talk back.
Yeah. So. But they do. They actually do. And the fun thing about it is that, especially from a Native American standpoint, which is very strong for me. At first, when my teachers told me to go out in the woods and talk to plants, I'm going, sit down and talk to plants? What do you do? And they're like, yes, go and talk to the plants. And at first I thought, they wanted me to sit down and have a conversation like I would with a person, and that's not the way it is at all. Talking to a plant, you have to talk to them like you do an animal. You have to get down on their level and, learn to sort of speak their language. And so I think my first plant that I ever tried to talk to was a potted Venus flytrap. And so I decided, he said, well, try it two ways. Respect the plant and then don't respect the plant and see which way it goes. And I spoke to the plant without respect first. I was like, just talking to it like I would a person. Clamp shut. Wouldn't talk to me at all. Was just going to sit there and turn away from me. And the minute I started to use a respectful tone, it just opened up. I could see all the colors on the inside, and it works that way for all plants.
The Venus flytrap in particular is a very unusual plant, as are any of the pitcher plants or any of the carnivorous plants. They serve a very unique function in the phytology of it all. And I'm sure you found it an interesting experience.
It was. It's interesting just to talk to flowers and things, because people don't think they move very much.
Even the common names of many plants will indicate their uses historically, either by our ancestors or Native American people, or in many cases by people of the craft who were using it in Europe all the way back through the medieval era. There's a plant named birthroot, which in America is essentially known as bethroot, but only through mispronunciation. There is a plant named motherwort that is very effective and can be safely used for many types of female complaints. But once again, there is definitely a need for sensitivity, number one, for respect in how fast you move, so that you're not taking something that your own body is not prepared to assimilate, and also an understanding of the literature. Therefore, I would recommend someone being able, although it is illegal to practice herbalism as a medical profession in these United States, I would still nevertheless insist that you find someone that has a background, preferably a woman, allow me to say this here. I myself am a man. I do not have the direct experience of pregnancy, nor will I anytime soon.
If you do, let me know. We can make millions.
We'll make another show for sure. And I think there's definitely a paternalistic putting upon of women that has helped to exclude the wise woman tradition, the wise woman tradition of herbalism, and it's as part of the important liberation of the concept of the divine woman. I think it's important that we realize that our mothers are the keepers of this tradition, not our fathers.
Well, I appreciate you coming today, and I know we're going to be working more on this series and talking about the next time we get together. We'll be talking about how to work with pregnancy once you're already pregnant. You know, what happens if you weren't able to
What herbs to take and what herbs to avoid.
Yes, and we'll talk about that again. So we're looking forward to it, and so I'm really glad you were able to make it again today, and I'm looking forward to talking with you again. I know we talk on a regular basis anyway. But I appreciate all of my audience coming, and I hope you'll join us again here on Kestryl and Company. Blessed be.